Hey guys! Tonight we plunge into the eerie gloom of 536 AD, where the world feels like it's holding its breath. Picture this. You're standing in a muddy village square, the air sharp with frost, and the sun, usually a cheerful blaze, is a sickly smudge behind a veil of gray. It's not just a bad day, it's the start of the volcanic winter, a global catastrophe that chokes the sky with ash and flips the world upside down. You squint upward, half expecting the clouds to part, but nope. This darkness sticks around, and spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. The air smells like sulfur and regret, and your stomach's already grumbling. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're chilling tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in the heart of what historians call the worst year to be alive, a title 536 AD earned with grim flair. A massive volcanic eruption, likely Krakatoa or Ilopango, spewed ash so thick it cloaked the sun across Europe, Asia, and beyond. Chronicles from the time, like those of Procopius, describe a sun that gave no light for months, casting a pall over civilizations. You're trudging through this dimness, your sandals sinking into cold mud, wondering why the sky looks like a bruise. The temperature's dropping fast. Some estimates say 2 to 3 degrees Celsius globally, and crops are starting to fail. Your neighbor, a wiry farmer, mutters about his barley wilting before it can sprout. You've got no Google to check the forecast, no cozy supermarket to raid. Just you, a growling stomach, and a world that's suddenly forgotten how to be warm. Now here's a quirky tidbit. Some folks back then thought the dim sun was a dragon eating it, a myth scribbled in Chinese annals. Dragons? Really? You smirk, but honestly, with the sky this creepy, you might buy it too. Historians still argue whether one volcano or a chain of eruptions caused this mess. Tree ring data from 536 shows a sharp growth halt, but pinning the exact culprit's tricky. You don't care about the debate, though. You're too busy rubbing your hands together, trying to stay warm. Your cloak's threadbare, and the wind's got a nasty bite. You pass a marketplace, usually buzzing with traders hawking fish or bread, but today it's half empty. A lone vendor offers shriveled turnips at triple the price. You hand over a copper coin, feeling like you've been robbed, and bite into the bitter root. It's not gourmet, but it's something. The haze above isn't just spooky, it's toxic. Ash particles irritate your throat, and every breath feels like you're swallowing sand. You notice folks coughing, their eyes red and watery. A kid nearby, no older than 10, hacks so hard you wince. You'd offer help, but what can you do? There's no pharmacy, no doctor on speed dial. You pull your scarf tighter, hoping it filters the air, but it's like using a napkin to stop a flood. The village elders are whispering about omens, saying the gods are angry. You roll your eyes. Gods, dragons, whatever. But deep down, you're spooked too. The sun's been AWOL for weeks, and nobody's got a plan. You spot a raven perched on a sagging roof, staring like it knows something you don't. Creepy much? You head home, a cramped hut with a straw roof that's starting to leak. You're lucky to have it. Some folks are sleeping in ditches. You try to light a fire, but the wood's damp and the sparks fizzle out. Classic 536 AD problems, right? You chuckle, but it's a nervous one. The darkness isn't just outside, it's creeping into your head. You lie down, staring at the ceiling, wondering if tomorrow's sky will clear. Spoiler, it won't. The volcanic winter's just getting started, and you're about to learn how much worse it can get. For now, you close your eyes, the distant howl of wind your only lullaby, and hope you dream of sunlight. You wake to a world that's choking. The air's thicker now, like you're breathing through a wool blanket soaked in ash. You step outside your hut, and the village feels wrong. Too quiet, too gray. The sun's still a faint smear, barely cutting through the haze that's settled like an uninvited guest. Your throat burns with every inhale, and you cough, tasting something sharp and metallic. This isn't just dust, It's the aftermath of that monster volcano. It's ash now a global bully. You wrap a rag around your face, bandit style, but it's about as useful as a paper umbrella in a storm. You're learning fast. The volcanic winter of 536 AD doesn't play nice, and breathing's becoming a gamble. Historical records, like those from Byzantine scribes, confirm the air was a nightmare. They wrote of a dry fog that stung lungs and dimmed stars, stretching from Constantinople to China. You're living that now, squinting at a horizon that's more smudge than sky. Your neighbor, the one with the wilted barley from before, is hacking worse today. He's doubled over, spitting into the dirt, and you keep your distance. Germs aren't your top worry yet, but the ash is making everyone's lungs a petri dish. You notice his kids aren't playing outside anymore. The village feels like it's holding its breath. Ironic, since you can barely catch yours. Here's a weird tidbit. Some folks tried burning herbs to purify the air, thinking the smoke would chase away the haze. Yeah, because more smoke's the answer, right? You pass a hut where an old woman's tossing lavender into a fire, muttering prayers. You stifle a laugh. You give her a nod, but secretly think she's lost it. Historians still argue whether the ash carried heavy metals like lead or mercury, making it extra toxic. No lab tests for you, though. Just a growing headache and a cough that won't quit. You're not a scientist, but you know this air is bad news. You trudge toward the village well, hoping for a clean drink to soothe your throat. The path's dusted with ash, like grim snow, and your sandals kick up clouds with every step. A stray dog limps by, ribs sharp under its matted fur, sneezing as it goes. Poor Mutt's got it as bad as you. At the well, a small crowd's arguing. The water's low, and what's left looks like muddy soup. Someone claims the ash is poisoning it. Another says it's just dirt. You dip a bucket anyway, desperate, and gag at the gritty taste. Bottled water's a fantasy. You're stuck with this. The haze isn't just in your lungs. It's in your head now. You feel sluggish, like you're moving through molasses. Sleep didn't help much last night. The air was too heavy, the hut too cold. You spot a kid tossing pebbles into a puddle, his face smudged with ash. "Sky's cursed," he mumbles, not looking up. You'd laugh, but he's not wrong. You're starting to wonder if this is the end. Apocalypse vibes, minus the cool soundtrack. A memory pops up. That raven from yesterday, staring like it knew the score. You shake it off, but the unease sticks. You head to the market, hoping for bread or maybe a fish. But it's a ghost town. Stalls are bare, and the few vendors left are charging insane prices. A woman offers a handful of dried beans for your only knife. You haggle, but she's stone cold. "Take it or starve," she snaps. You walk away, stomach growling, clutching your knife like it's a lifeline. On the way back, you pass a shrine where folks are burning offerings, sticks, rags, even a dead rat. They're chanting for the sun to return. You roll your eyes, but part of you gets it. Desperation's a hell of a drug. Back home, you try to rinse the ash off your hands, but the water's too filthy to help. You're coated in it now, like you're becoming part of the haze. The cough's worse, rattling your chest, and you're dizzy enough to wonder if you're getting sick. You lie down, the straw mat scratching your back, and stare at the ceiling. Outside, the wind carries faint moans. People, animals, or just your imagination? You're not sure anymore. The haze is stealing more than your breath. It's stealing your hope. You close your eyes, praying for a clear sky. But deep down, you know this is just the beginning. You're staring at a field that's more graveyard than farmland. The barley you saw wilting a few days ago? It's done for. Stalks limp, heads drooping like they've given up. You kneel, running your fingers over the brittle remains, and feel a pang in your gut. This isn't just one farmer's bad luck. It's every field in the village, maybe every field for miles. The volcanic winter of 536 AD has snuffed out the sun, and without it, crops don't stand a chance. You stand up, brushing dirt off your hands, and squint at the sky. Still that same gray smear, no warmth, no promise. Your stomach's already complaining, and you're wondering how long you can stretch that handful of turnips from the market. Historical records back this up. Tree rings from 536 show almost no growth, a sign of global cooling that crushed harvests. Byzantine chroniclers noted bread prices soaring as grain vanished. You're living that nightmare now, trudging past fields where nothing grows. Not wheat, not oats, not even the stubborn weeds you used to curse. A farmer nearby, his face gaunt, is digging up roots, hoping for something edible. Might as well eat dirt, he mutters. You nod, half laughing, but it's not funny. Dirt's looking better than nothing, and nothing's what you've got coming. Here's a quirky bit. Some folks tried eating tree bark, grinding it into a gritty flour. You pass a guy scraping at an oak, his knife duller than his prospects. You're tempted to try it, but your teeth aren't that desperate. Yet. Historians still argue whether the cooling lasted 1 year or stretched into a decade. Dendrochronology leans toward a prolonged chill, but the exact timeline's fuzzy. You don't care about the math. You're too busy scanning the ground for anything green, anything that might fill the hole in your belly. You head toward a patch of forest, hoping to forage. The trees loom, their leaves coated in ash, like they're wearing mourning clothes. You spot a cluster of mushrooms, but they're shriveled, black at the edges. Poison or starvation? Great choices. 536 AD. You leave them, remembering that kid from the village who ate bad berries last week and didn't wake up. The forest is quiet, no birdsong, just the crunch of your steps on frost-crusted leaves. You find a few wild onions, small and bitter, and stuff them in your pouch. It's not a feast, but it's a start. You're already daydreaming about soup, though you've got no pot to cook it in. Back in the village, the mood's grim. A woman's shouting at her husband, blaming him for not planting earlier. He snaps back. Plant what? The sun's dead. You slip past, not wanting to get dragged in. Their kids are watching, silent, their faces smudged with ash from that choking haze you're still coughing through. You think of that lavender-burning grandma from yesterday, her purified air doing squat. If she's got a spell for growing crops without sunlight, now's the time. You chuckle, but it's hollow. Hunger's not a great comedian. You pass a shrine, the one with the rat offering. It's grown. A pile of bones now, some fresh flowers, wilted but hopeful. Someone's scratched a prayer into the wood. Bring back the light. You're not religious, but you get the urge to add your own plea. Instead, you keep walking, clutching your onions like they're gold. The cold's deeper today, seeping through your cloak, making your fingers ache. You remember the well, that gritty water you choked down. No crops, bad water, toxic air. This winter's stacking the deck against you. At home, you try to start a fire, but the wood's still damp. You're burning through your stash too fast, and the forest's not exactly a lumberyard. You huddle close to the weak flames, chewing an onion. It's sharp enough to make your eyes water, or maybe that's the ash. Or maybe it's the sinking feeling that this is your new normal. You lie down, the straw mat colder than last night, and listen to the wind. It's not howling anymore, just a low, steady moan, like the world's tired of fighting. You close your eyes, dreaming of fields bursting with grain, but the darkness behind your lids is as empty as the ones outside. You're scrounging through the village and your stomach's screaming louder than a cranky toddler. Those wild onions from yesterday? Gone in one sad, gritty meal. The fields are barren, the market's a bust, and now you're poking through abandoned huts, hoping someone left a crumb. The volcanic winter of 536 AD has turned food into a myth, and famine's got its claws in deep. You kick open a creaky door, finding only dust and a broken pot. No barley, no beans, not even a moldy crust. You mutter, "Great, I'm starring in Hunger Games, Ash Edition." It's a weak joke, but it keeps you from screaming. Historical accounts, like those from the Annals of Ulster, describe mass starvation as crops failed across Europe. Grain stores emptied faster than a Black Friday sale, and people turned to anything that wouldn't kill them. Yet. You're there now, eyeing a pile of shriveled nettles by the roadside. They'll sting like hell to pick. But boiled, they might not kill you. You wrap your hands in a rag and yank them up, wincing as a few spines get through. Your pouch is pathetically light, and you're already fantasizing about a nettle smoothie. Spoiler, it's gonna taste like despair. Here's a weird tidbit. Some folks resorted to eating clay mixed with water, thinking it'd fill their bellies. You overhear a gaunt man by the well, swearing it settles the hunger. You're hungry, but not clay cake hungry. Historians still argue whether famine or disease killed more in 536. Skeletal remains from the period show signs of malnutrition, but plagues lurking too. You don't care about the stats. You're too busy dodging that dog from a few days ago, now skin and bones, sniffing your nettles like it's planning a heist. Back off, Fido, you growl, and it slinks away. You head to the riverbank, hoping to fish. The water's sluggish, coated with an ashy film, and smells like a wet campfire. You've got no net, just a sharpened stick you're calling a spear. You stand there, jabbing at shadows in the water, missing every time. A kid watches, giggling. "You're worse than my dad," he says. You shoot him a glare, but can't help grinning. Kids, man. You give up, no fish, just muddy boots and a bruised ego. Back in the village, the vibe's worse. People are bartering heirlooms for food. A silver ring for a handful of dried peas, a wool cloak for a single egg. You clutch your knife, the one you refuse to trade, feeling like a king and a beggar. A woman's crying, her baby too quiet in her arms. You look away, guilt gnawing at you. That shrine's piled higher now, bones, feathers, even a shoe. You toss in a nettle, a half-hearted offering. "Fix this," you whisper, not sure who you're talking to. Your hut's colder, the fire barely a flicker. You boil the nettles in gritty well water, and the soup tastes like boiled socks. You choke it down, stomach still snarling. The cough from the ash is worse, rattling your chest like a bad engine. You think of that clay-eating guy. Maybe he's onto something. Nah, you're not there yet. You lie down, the straw mat poking through your cloak. Outside, someone's shouting about raiders hitting a nearby village. Great, another problem. You pull the cloak over your head, pretending it's a shield, and try to sleep. Hunger's a lousy lullaby, but it's all you've got tonight. You're wandering through the village, and it's like stepping into a ghost story. Huts stand empty, their straw roofs sagging, doors creaking in the wind. The volcanic winter of 536 AD has drained the life from this place, and the few people left move like shadows, their faces hollow. You pass a cart, abandoned, its wheels half buried in ash. A child's sandal lies nearby, no owner in sight. You shiver, not just from the cold, and mutter, "This place is one banjo riff from a horror flick." It's a lame joke, but it keeps the creeping dread at bay. The silence is worse than the hunger, worse than the ash in your lungs. Historical records, like those of Cassiodorus in Italy, describe villages deserted as famine and cold drove people away, or killed them. Entire communities vanished, leaving behind only echoes and tax rolls. You're living that now, your sandals crunching on frost as you peek into a hut. A loom sits untouched, threads dangling like spiderwebs. You wonder where the weaver went, fled, starved, or worse. The air smells of damp wood and something sour, maybe rot. You back out, heart thudding, and keep moving. The village feels like it's watching you, waiting for you to join the ghosts. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some folks left messages scratched on walls like ancient graffiti. You spot one on a crumbling beam. "Son, return." It's half plea, half curse, and you feel a weird kinship with whoever carved it. Historians still argue whether migration or death emptied these villages. Archaeological digs show abandoned tools but few bodies. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy dodging a rat that darts across your path, its ribs sharper than yours. "At least you're eating," you grumble, half jealous. You head toward the village center, hoping to find someone. Anyone. The market's gone, stalls collapsed into piles of splinters. You spot a woman, her shawl pulled tight, muttering to herself as she sifts through rubble. "They left," she says, not looking at you. "Took the grain, left me." You don't ask who they are. Raiders, neighbors, doesn't matter. You offer her a nettle from your pouch, but she waves it away. "Keep your weeds," she snaps. You shrug, stung but not surprised. Hunger's making everyone mean. The shrine's still there. Its pile of offerings now a grim art project. Bones, rags, a cracked bowl. You pause, remembering your nettle offering from yesterday. No sun yet, so maybe the gods aren't into vegetables. You smirk, but it fades fast. A faint whisper carries on the wind. Not words, just a sound like breathing. You spin, expecting someone, but it's just the empty village playing tricks. Or is it? You think of that raven from days ago, its knowing stare. "Stop it," you tell yourself, shaking off the spooky vibes. You circle back to your hut, passing a well that's now just a hole in the ground. The water's gone, or maybe no one's brave enough to haul it up. Your throat's dry, your cough worse from the ash you're still breathing. You think of that clay-eating guy, wonder if he's still kicking. Your hut's no sanctuary, the roof's leaking, and the fire's dead. You try to light it, but the wood's too wet, and you're out of patience. You lie on the straw mat, clutching your knife, the only thing you trust. Outside, the wind hums, carrying whispers you can't quite catch. You close your eyes, dreaming of a village full of laughter, but the silence follows you into sleep. You're trudging toward a river, hoping for a miracle, a sip of clean water to ease the grit in your throat. The volcanic winter of 536 AD has turned the world into a freezer, and the river you used to fish in is now a ribbon of ice, glinting dully under the ash-choked sky. You kneel at the edge, tapping the surface with your knife. It's thick, unyielding, and you mutter, "Great. Even the water's ghosting me now." The weak joke doesn't help. Your lips are cracked, and every cough from that toxic haze feels like a punch. You're desperate, and the frozen river's just another middle finger from this miserable year. Historical records, like those from Chinese chronicles, note rivers freezing solid across continents, a side effect of the global cooling that followed the volcanic eruption. Temperatures dropped enough to lock waterways, cutting off drinking water and fishing. You're feeling that now, chipping at the ice with your knife, hoping for a crack. The blade slips, nearly slicing your hand, and you curse under your breath. A nearby villager, a wiry man with frost in his beard, watches you struggle. "Ain't no water left," he says, spitting into the ash. You ignore him, but he's probably right. Still, you keep hacking because giving up feels worse. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some folks tried melting ice over fires, only to find it tasted like ash from the polluted air. You spot a woman nearby, her hands red from cold, trying to warm a chunk of river ice in a dented pot. "Tastes like death," she grumbles, catching your eye. You nod, half smiling. Death's got a flavor now, apparently. Historians still argue whether frozen rivers or poisoned wells killed more people. Archaeological evidence shows depleted fish bones in settlements, hinting at lost food sources. You don't care about the debate, you just want a drink that doesn't make you gag. You finally break through, a small hole revealing sluggish gray water. You dip your hands, wincing at the cold, and scoop a mouthful. It's gritty, with a sulfur tang, like the air's been brewed into it. You choke it down anyway, stomach twisting. The villager laughs, a raspy sound. "You'll be shitting ash by sundown," he says. You shoot him a glare, but can't help chuckling. At least someone's got a sense of humor, even if it's grim. You fill a small flask, knowing it's barely better than nothing. The walk back is brutal. The cold bites through your cloak, and the wind carries flecks of ash that sting your eyes. You pass a frozen pond where kids used to splash. Now it's a mirror reflecting the dead sky. A memory hits. You spearing for fish days ago. That kid mocking your aim. Feels like a lifetime. You wonder where he is now, then push the thought away. The village looms ahead, quieter than ever. You spot that shrine, its pile of offerings dusted with frost. Someone's added a frozen fish, its scales dull. You're tempted to snatch it, hunger gnawing, but you keep walking. Stealing from gods feels like bad karma. Your hut's no warmer than the riverbank. You try to start a fire, but the wood's frozen solid, and your fingers are too numb to grip the flint. You think of that lavender-burning grandma from days ago. Her purified air didn't thaw anything. You wrap your cloak tighter, sipping the foul water, and lie on the straw mat. The cough's deeper now, rattling your bones, and you're dizzy from hunger and cold. Outside, the wind howls, sounding like distant voices calling your name. You tell yourself it's just the river ice cracking, but the chill in your spine says otherwise. You close your eyes, dreaming of warm springs and clear streams, but the ice follows you into sleep. You're trudging through a forest, the air so cold it feels like knives in your lungs, and the volcanic winter of 536 AD has turned the woods into a starvation trap. The river ice from yesterday left you with a sour stomach and no answers, so now you're hunting for anything. Berries, roots, maybe a squirrel dumb enough to show itself. But the animals are as hungry as you, and they're not playing fair. You freeze, hearing a low growl. A wolf, ribs jutting like a bad sculpture, glares from the shadows. You grip your knife and mutter, "Buddy, I'm not on the menu." It's a shaky joke, but it steadies your nerves as you back away, heart hammering. Historical records, like those from Procopius, mention wildlife dying off as the cold and famine tightened their grip. Deer vanished, fish dwindled, and predators turned desperate, raiding villages for scraps. You're seeing it now, dodging that wolf as it slinks closer, yellow eyes locked on you. You wave your knife, shouting, and it hesitates, then bolts. Lucky break, but you're not feeling like a winner. The forest is silent. No birds, no rustling, just ash-dusted trees and frost crunching underfoot. You spot a rabbit carcass, half-eaten, probably the wolf's leftovers. You're hungry, but not that hungry. Yet. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers tried luring starving animals with traps baited with their own hair, thinking it smelled human enough to trick them. You pass a crude snare, a clump of matted hair tied to a stick. Yeah, good luck with that. You smirk, imagining the wolf laughing too. Historians still argue whether human or animal deaths spiked more in 536. Zoo archaeological digs show predator bones with signs of malnutrition, but human graves tell a similar story. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy scanning for tracks, hoping to find something edible before something finds you. You push deeper, hands numb, your cloak snagging on thorns. A cluster of berries catches your eye, black, shriveled, but better than nothing. You pop one in your mouth, wincing at the sour bite. Poison? Maybe, but starvation's a worse bet. You pocket the rest, moving fast before the wolf circles back. The forest feels like it's watching, every snap of a twig making you jump. You think of that kid by the river, mocking your fishing skills. Wonder if he's out here, dodging wolves too. The thought stings, and you shove it down. Back near the village, you spot a man skinning a fox, its fur patchy. "Caught it stealing my traps," he says, not looking up. You nod, jealous of his haul, but you're not trading your knife for a scrap of meat. The village is quieter, the shrine from yesterday now dusted with fresh ash. Someone's added a wolf tooth, probably praying for protection. You're tempted to toss in a berry, but you clutch your pouch instead. Hunger's making you selfish, and you're not sorry. A distant howl sends a shiver through you, and you hurry home. Your hut's a freezer, the fire long dead. You try to chew a berry, but it's like swallowing gravel. The cough from the ash is worse, and your stomach's doing flips from the river. You're crouched in the village, the air thick with that familiar ash tang, and the volcanic winter of 536 AD is about to throw another punch. Disease. You smell it before you see it, a sour, sickly stench drifting from a hut across the way. Someone's moaning inside, low and desperate, and you hesitate, your hand tight on your knife. You're no doctor, but you know sickness when it creeps in. And this place is a breeding ground. Starving bodies, filthy water, and that choking haze you're still coughing up. You mutter, "Great, now I'm dodging the plague like it's a bad Tinder date." The joke's weak, but it keeps your feet moving away from that hut. Historical records, like those from the Byzantine historian Evagrius, describe outbreaks of disease, possibly early forms of plague, hitting hard in 536 and beyond. Weakened by famine and cold, people dropped fast, and villages became death traps. You're living that now, sidestepping a woman slumped against a wall, her face flushed and sweaty despite the frost. She's muttering, eyes glassy, and you pull your rag tighter over your mouth. It's not much, but it's all you've got against whatever's floating in the air. Your own cough's worse, rattling your chest, and you're starting to wonder if it's more than just the ash. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some folks thought tying garlic around their necks would ward off disease, like it was a vampire or something. You spot a guy nearby, his cloak bulging with garlic bulbs, looking like a walking spice rack. You stifle a laugh. Good luck, buddy. Historians still argue whether the 536 outbreaks were the Justinian Plague's opening act or something else. Skeletal DNA from the period shows Yersinia pestis in some regions, but not everywhere. You don't care about the science. You're too busy avoiding anyone who looks like they're about to keel over. You head toward the river, hoping distance from the village means cleaner air. The ice is thicker today, reflecting the gray sky like a dirty mirror. You think of that wolf from yesterday, its hungry stare. At least animals don't catch this plague, or do they? You're not sticking around to find out. A man's by the bank, burning rags in a small fire. Keeps the sickness away, he says, tossing in a scrap that smells like death. You nod, keeping your distance, but the smoke makes your eyes water. So much for that lavender-burning grandma's purified air from days ago. Nobody's winning the clean air contest. The village feels smaller, not just from abandoned huts, but from the way people avoid each other. You pass the shrine, its pile of offerings now dusted with frost and ash. Someone's added a garlic bulb. Guess the gods need plague protection too. You smirk, but it fades when you hear another moan. This time from a child behind a fence. Your stomach twists, and you think of that kid by the river, mocking your fishing. Is he sick now? You shake it off, guilt gnawing. Hunger's bad, but disease feels like betrayal, your own body turning traitor. Back home, your hut's no safer. The straw mat's damp, the fire's dead, and the air's heavy with that same sickly smell. You sip the gritty water from your flask, wincing at the sulfur taste, and chew one of those sour berries from the forest. Your cough's deeper, and you're lightheaded, maybe from hunger, maybe something worse. You lie down, clutching your knife, and listen to the wind. It carries faint groans now, not just whispers. You tell yourself it's the cold, not the plague, but the fears creeping in. You close your eyes, dreaming of warm beds and clean air, but the sickness lingers in your sleep. You're weaving through the village, or what's left of it, and the volcanic winter of 536 AD has gutted the market you once knew. The stalls, already half-empty days ago, are now just heaps of splintered wood, dusted with ash and frost. You're hoping for a scrap of bread, maybe a fish, but the traders are gone, the barter system dead. Your pouch holds a few sour berries and a nettle or two, but that's not currency anymore. You kick a broken crate and mutter, "Guess I'm not buying dinner with good vibes." The sarcasm's thin, but it keeps you from yelling at the gray sky that's still choking out the sun. Historical records, like those of Cassiodorus, lament the collapse of trade as the volcanic cooling wrecked harvests and froze rivers, halting goods from moving. From Constantinople to Chang'an, markets dried up, and prices for what little remained skyrocketed. You're feeling that now, standing in a ghost market where a lone vendor hawks a handful of shriveled carrots like they're gold. He wants your knife for one. You laugh, a bitter sound, and walk away. Your stomach's howling, but that knife's your only friend. You think of that woman who traded her ring for peas. Wonder if she's regretting it now. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some traders tried passing off dyed rocks as magic grain, claiming it'd grow in the dark. You spot a smooth stone painted yellow, discarded in the dirt. Someone fell for it, and you can't help but chuckle. Desperation makes suckers of us all. Historians still argue whether trade stopped entirely or just shifted underground. Archaeological finds show fewer imported goods in 536, but some hoards hint at black market deals. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy eyeing a rat nibbling a rotten apple core, wondering if you're hungry enough to fight for it. You move on, passing a woman bartering a clay pot for a scrap of cloth. Her voice is sharp, desperate, and the deal falls apart when the other guy walks off. No food, No trade, he shouts. You get it. Cloth won't fill a belly. The village feels like it's unraveling. Every deal a fight, every glance suspicious. You think of that garlic-wearing guy from yesterday, his plague protection. Bet he's not trading those bulbs. The shrine's nearby, its pile of offerings untouched. Bones, a fish, that garlic bulb. Someone's added a broken loom shuttle, like the gods want weaving supplies. You're tempted to toss in your painted rock for luck, but you keep walking. The cold's worse today, gnawing through your cloak, and the ash in the air stings your eyes. Your cough's a constant now, and you're dizzy. Maybe from hunger, maybe from that sickly air you're still breathing. You head toward your hut, passing a man dragging a sled with a single sack. Grain, maybe, or just dirt. He glares, hand on a club, and you steer clear. No market, no trust, just survival math. You think of that wolf in the forest, its hungry stare. Humans aren't much different now. Your hut's a wreck. Roof leaking, fire dead. You try to chew a berry, but it's like biting gravel and your stomach twists. You sip the gritty water from your flask, remembering the river's sulfur tang. Outside, the wind carries a faint shout. Someone fighting over something. Probably nothing. You lie on the straw mat, knife in hand, and stare at the ceiling. The market's gone, and with it, the last threads of normal. You close your eyes, dreaming of bustling stalls and warm bread, but the emptiness follows you into sleep. You're skulking through the village, the volcanic winter of 536 AD turning the world into a lawless mess, and the whispers of failing kings are louder than the wind. The local chief, once a big shot with his fancy cloak and iron sword, is losing his grip. You overhear a group of gaunt villagers muttering near the frozen well, their breath clouding in the ash-heavy air. They're saying he's hoarding grain while everyone else starves. You grip your knife, feeling the weight of their anger, and mutter, "Guess even kings can't bribe the sun." It's a half-hearted jab, but it keeps your mind off the hunger clawing at your gut. Historical records, like those from the Byzantine chronicler Procopius, note how rulers struggled as famine and cold eroded their authority. Taxes went unpaid, armies deserted, and local lords faced rebellions from desperate subjects. You're seeing it now, passing the chief's hall, a timber structure that used to gleam with torchlight. It's dark, the guard's gone, and someone scrawled a rude symbol in ash on the door. You smirk, but it's uneasy. If the chief falls, who's keeping the raiders at bay? You think of that shouting you heard last night. Maybe it wasn't just a food fight. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some chiefs tried paying followers with looted jewelry instead of food, like bling could fill a stomach. You spot a glint in the dirt, a cheap bronze ring, probably tossed when it didn't buy loyalty. You pocket it, not sure why. Historians still argue whether 536's chaos sparked new power structures or just deepened the old ones. Coin hoards from the period suggest some elites clung to wealth, but graves show others didn't survive the unrest. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy dodging a man stomping past, cursing the chief for eating while we rot. You head toward the village edge, hoping to avoid trouble. The shrine's still there, its pile of offerings, bones, a fish, that loom shuttle, now dusted with fresh frost. Someone's added a cracked horn, maybe the chief's, a middle finger to his rule. You think of that painted rock you found in the market, the fake grain, tempting to toss it here, but you keep it, a weird keepsake. The air's colder, the ash thicker, and your cough's a deep rattle now. You pull your rag tighter, remembering that garlic-wearing guy. Wonder if he's still warding off plague, or chiefs. A shout pulls you back. Two men are shoving each other near a hut, one accusing the other of stealing from the chief's grain stash. A crowd gathers, eyes hard, and you slip away before fists fly. The village feels like a pot about to boil over, and you're not sticking around for the explosion. You think of that wolf in the forest, its desperate stare. People are starting to look the same. Your stomach twists, those berries from yesterday long gone, and the gritty water in your flask tastes like defeat. Your hut's no refuge, the roof leaking worse, the straw mat damp. You try to start a fire, but the wood's frozen, and your fingers fumble. You lie down, knife clutched, and listen to the wind. It carries distant yells now, maybe from the chief's hall. You think of that scrawled symbol on his door, the ring in your pocket. Power's crumbling, and you're just trying to stay alive. You close your eyes, dreaming of warm feasts and loyal lords, but the chaos seeps into your sleep. You're huddled near the village shrine, the air biting your skin, and the volcanic winter of 536 AD has people spinning wild stories about the sky. The sun's still a sickly smudge, and the ash-heavy haze feels like it's mocking you. You overhear a priest, his voice trembling, telling a small crowd that the gods are furious, swallowing the light as punishment. You clutch your knife, rolling your eyes, and mutter, "Yeah, because Zeus forgot his sunscreen." The sarcasm's sharp, but it masks the unease crawling up your spine. These myths are all anyone's got left, and they're starting to sound less crazy in this endless gray. Historical records, like those from the Chinese Book of Liang, describe celestial omens, dim suns, strange stars, tied to divine wrath. Across cultures, from Byzantium to Mesoamerica, people saw the darkened sky as a cosmic slap. You're living that now, watching the priest wave a bone wand, claiming it'll appease the heavens. The crowd's eating it up, their faces a mix of fear and hope. You notice a kid, the one who mocked your fishing way back, tossing a pebble into the shrine's pile. Bones, a fish, that cracked horn. He catches your eye and shrugs, like he's hedging his bets. You almost smile. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villages burned effigies of clouds, thinking it'd scare the haze away. You spot a charred straw figure nearby, half buried in ash, looking like a sad scarecrow. You chuckle. Cloud bullying, really? Historians still argue whether these rituals unified communities or just fueled panic. Temple offerings spiked in 536, but so did mass graves. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy coughing, the ash still clawing your lungs, and dodging a woman who's chanting and tossing ash into the air like it's confetti. Spoiler, it's not helping. You move on. The cold seeping through your cloak, your stomach growling over those long-gone berries. The priest's voice fades, but his words stick. Gods, dragons, something's to blame. You think of that dragon myth from days ago, the one about it eating the sun? You're not buying it, but the sky's creepy enough to make you wonder. The village feels tense, like it's waiting for a sign. You pass a hut where someone scratched a sun symbol into the wood, raised jagged and desperate. It's not art. It's a prayer. Your cough's worse, and you're dizzy, maybe from hunger, maybe from that sickly air you're still breathing. You think of that garlic-wearing guy, his plague defense. Wonder if he's praying to the gods now. The shrine's pile grows, a new feather, a broken bead. You're tempted to add that bronze ring from the chief's hall, but you keep it, a talisman against nothing. A distant shout breaks the quiet, more fighting, maybe over the chief's grain. You hurry toward your hut, avoiding the crowd. Myths won't fill your belly, and gods don't seem to care. Your hut's colder, the roof leaking, the straw mat soggy. You try to sip the gritty water from your flask, but it's like swallowing mud. You lie down, knife in hand, and listen to the wind. It carries the priest's chants now, faint and eerie. You think of that kid's pebble, the charred effigy, the sun symbol. The gods aren't answering, and you're not sure you'd trust them if they did. You close your eyes, dreaming of clear skies and warm light, but the myths whisper in your sleep. You're shivering in the village, the volcanic winter of 536 AD sinking its teeth deeper, and the cold is no longer just a nuisance. It's a killer. The air stings your face like 1,000 tiny needles, and the ground's frozen so hard your sandals slip with every step. You wrap your cloak tighter, but it's like hugging a ghost. The wind slices right through. You're headed to check a neighbor's hut, hoping they've got spare wood or a spark of warmth, but you're already dreading what you'll find. You mutter, "Winter's got a personal grudge now, huh?" The joke's flimsy, but it keeps your jaw from locking up in the frost. Historical records like those from the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle note brutal winters following the volcanic eruption, with temperatures plunging far below normal. Tree rings from the period show stunted growth, proof of a cold snap that gripped the globe. You're feeling it now, your breath clouding in front of you, each exhale a fleeting warm spot in the icy air. You knock on the neighbor's door, no answer. You push it open, and the hut's empty, just a pile of frost-dusted straw and a cold hearth. They're gone, like half the village, and you're not sure if they fled or froze. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some folks tried sleeping with hot stones to stay warm, only to burn their blankets or crack the rocks. You spot a scorched rag in the corner, probably from one of those genius plans. You smirk. Fire hazards in a frozen world. Classic. Historians still argue whether the cold or starvation killed more in 536. Skeletal remains show signs of frostbite, but empty stomachs were just as deadly. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy rubbing your numb hands, wishing you'd grabbed those nettles for a fire instead of soup. You head back out, the cold clawing at your bones. The village is a blur of gray and white, ash mixing with frost like a miserable snow globe. You pass the shrine, its pile of offerings. Bones, that cracked horn, a feather, now half buried in ice. Someone's added a frozen rag, maybe hoping the gods like popsicles. You think of that sun symbol you saw yesterday, its desperate rays. No warmth today, just your cough. Worse now, rattling like a broken gate. You pull your rag over your mouth, but it's stiff with frost. Useless against the ash still choking the air. A faint glow catches your eye. A villager's fire, barely alive, outside a hut. You approach, cautious, and see a woman huddling close, her fingers blue. "Got no wood left," she whispers, not looking up. You offer a twig from your pouch, a pathetic gesture, and she takes it without a word. You're both too cold to care about manners. You think of that wolf from the forest, its hungry stare. Cold's a predator too, and it's stalking you both. You move on, your legs heavy, the wind howling like it's laughing at you. Your hut's an icebox, the roof leaking frozen drips, the straw mat crunching underfoot. You try to start a fire, but your last stick snaps, and the flint's too cold to spark. You think of that garlic-wearing guy, his plague defense. Wonder if he's frozen solid now. You lie down, knife clutched, your breath the only warm thing left. The wind carries a low moan. Maybe the village, maybe your own fear. You close your eyes, dreaming of blazing hearths and summer fields, but the cold wraps around you like a shroud in your sleep. You're crouched in your hut, the volcanic winter of 536 AD turning every breath into a battle against the cold, and your firewood's running out faster than your hope. The frost has crept inside, coating the walls with a thin, glittering crust, and the straw mat beneath you feels like a slab of ice. You're rationing your last scraps of wood, each stick precious, but the fire you're nursing is more smoke than flame. You poke at it, muttering, "Burn, you little drama queen, or I'm eating you raw." The sarcasm's weak, but it keeps your fingers moving as you try to coax a spark into something warm. Historical records, like those from Byzantine scribes, describe desperate shortages of fuel as forests were stripped and trade routes collapsed, leaving villages to freeze. Winter temperatures, already brutal from the volcanic cooling, turned hearths into luxuries. You're living that now, your hands shaking as you break a twig into smaller bits, praying it catches. The smoke stings your eyes, mixing with the ash you're still coughing up, and the air smells like defeat. You think of that neighbor's empty hut from yesterday. Bet they ran out of wood too, or just gave up trying. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some folks burned old clothes or even dung to stay warm, filling their huts with a stench worse than the plague. You spot a singed rag in your corner, probably from a similar desperate move. You chuckle. Dung fires, the original aromatherapy fail. Historians still argue whether fuel shortages or food scarcity hit harder in 536. Archaeological digs show ash-filled hearths with no wood traces, but mass graves tell their own story. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy blowing on the embers. Your breath the only heat you've got left. You glance outside, the village a frozen blur through the cracked door. The shrine's pile, bones, that frozen rag, a bead, gleams under fresh frost, untouched. You think of that sun symbol scratched on a hut, its jagged rays a mocking wish. Your fire sputters. and you add another twig, wincing as your supply dwindles. A memory hits. That woman by the weak fire yesterday, her blue fingers. Wonder if she's still hanging on. The cold's a thief, stealing warmth and will, and you're running low on both. You wrap your cloak tighter, but it's like wrapping yourself in a breeze. Your cough's deeper, each hack pulling at your ribs, and you're dizzy, maybe from hunger, maybe from the smoke. You think of that wolf in the forest, its desperate stare. Wonder if it's warmer than you right now. The wind howls, carrying a faint crack, maybe ice, maybe someone else's fire dying. You lie down, knife in hand, the straw mat crunching like frozen leaves. The fire's a flicker now, barely enough to warm your face. You sip the gritty water from your flask, its sulfur taste a grim reminder of the river. The village feels like it's fading, each hut a tomb waiting to claim its owner. You think of that kid by the river, his pebble at the shrine. Is he out there, rationing twigs like you? You push the thought away, focusing on the fire's weak glow. It's all you've got, a tiny rebellion against the cold. You close your eyes, dreaming of roaring bonfires and summer nights, but the smoke and frost curl into your sleep, whispering that warmth is just a memory. You're trudging along the coast, the volcanic winter of 536 AD whipping the sea into a frothing beast, and the storms are wrecking what little hope you had left. The wind screams, flinging ash and salt into your face, and the waves crash like they're trying to swallow the shore. You're here because the village is a frozen graveyard, and you've heard rumors of fish or trade from coastal folk. But the sea's not cooperating, ships are splintered hulks, and the horizon's a gray smear. You shield your eyes, muttering, "Guess Poseidon's throwing a tantrum too." The joke's flat, but it keeps your teeth from chattering. Historical records, like those from Mediterranean port logs, describe maritime trade grinding to a halt as volcanic cooling fueled relentless storms. Harbors from Byzantium to Britain saw ships smashed or stranded, cutting off fish, grain, and news. You're seeing it now, picking your way past a wrecked boat, its mast snapped like a twig. The sand's littered with ropes and broken barrels, and the air smells of rot and brine. A gull circles, its cry mocking your empty stomach. You think of that market, long gone. Fish was a dream even then, and now the sea's locked up tighter than a king's vault. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some sailors tried tying charms to their ships, thinking knotted ropes could calm the waves. You spot a frayed cord tangled in driftwood, carved with a crude fish. Yeah, nice try, buddy. You smirk, kicking it aside. Historians still argue whether storms or inland famine did more damage in 536. Shipwreck sites show scattered cargo, but inland graves outnumber them. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy dodging a wave that soaks your cloak, the cold sinking into your bones like a bad debt. You spot a figure, a fisherman maybe, huddled by a rock, mending a net that's more holes than thread. "No fish," he growls, not looking up. "Sea's cursed." You nod, remembering that priest's sky myths. Cursed sea, cursed sky, same story. You ask about other villages, hoping for news, but he shrugs. Waves took him. You move on, your cough worse in the salty air, each hack like a knife in your chest. You think of that wolf in the forest, its hungry stare. Wonder if it's braving these storms too. The shore stretches on, bleak and endless. You pass the shrine's coastal cousin, a pile of shells, fish bones, and a cracked oar dusted with ash. Someone's added a seaweed braid, another charm for nothing. You think of that sun symbol back in the village, its desperate rays. No warmth here, just the sea's roar and your growling stomach. You clutch your knife, the bronze ring in your pocket a useless weight. A distant crack, lightning or another ship breaking, makes you flinch. You head inland, the village's silence better than this chaos. Your hut's no haven, the roof leaking icy drips, the straw mat soggy. You try to dry your cloak, but the fire's dead, and your last twig's gone. You sip the gritty water from your flask, its sulfur taste mixing with salt. You lie down, knife in hand, the wind carrying the sea's howl. You think of that fisherman, his cursed waves, and the kid's pebble at the shrine. The storms are winning, and you're just a speck in their path. You close your eyes, dreaming of calm harbors and warm tides, but the waves crash through your sleep. You're creeping through the outskirts of the village, the volcanic winter of 536 AD turning every shadow into a threat, and raiders are sniffing out the chaos like wolves on a fresh kill. The air's thick with ash and frost, and your cough's a constant rasp, betraying your position as you duck behind a crumbling hut. You've heard whispers, bands of desperate men hitting weakened settlements, stealing what little food or warmth remains. Your knife's in hand, the blade dull but loyal, and you mutter, "Great, now I'm in a post-apocalyptic heist movie." The joke's shaky, but it keeps your heart from pounding out of your chest. Historical records, like those from the Chronicle of Hydatius, describe banditry spiking as famine and cold-shattered social order. Villages, stripped of chief's protection, became easy prey for roving gangs. You're living that now, spotting fresh tracks in the frost. Boots, too many for comfort. You crouch lower, peering through a gap in the hut's wall. A flicker of movement. A cloaked figure with a club scanning the village. Your stomach twists, not just from hunger, but fear. You think of that scrawled symbol on the chief's hall, the crumbling power. No one's coming to save you now. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers tried scaring raiders with painted skulls on stakes, hoping they'd think the place was cursed. You spot one nearby, a cow skull with red clay streaks, half buried in ash. You smirk. Nice try. But raiders aren't spooked by arts and crafts. Historians still argue whether these raids were organized or just desperate mobs. Weapon caches from the period suggest some planning, but mass graves hint at chaos. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy holding your breath, praying the raider moves on. He does, vanishing into the gray, but you're not relaxed. You slip toward the village center, sticking to shadows. The shrine's there, its pile, shells, that ore, a seaweed braid, untouched, like even raiders respect the god's junkyard. You think of that kid's pebble, the sun symbol, the myths about angry heavens. Raiders are a closer threat than gods, though. You hear a shout, distant but sharp, and your pulse spikes. Maybe they hit the chief's hall, or maybe someone fought back. You're not sticking around to find out. You double back, passing a hut with a broken door, splinters fresh. Inside, a overturned pot and scattered straw, no blood, but no people either. You think of that woman by the fire, her blue fingers. Did she run, or did they get her? Your cough betrays you again, loud in the silence, and you freeze, expecting a raider to pounce. Nothing. You move on, the cold biting through your cloak, your stomach growling over those long-gone berries. You clutch the bronze ring in your pocket, a useless charm against this new danger. Your hut's no fortress, the roof leaking, the straw mat icy. You barricade the door with a broken crate, knowing it won't hold. You try to sip the gritty water from your flask, but it's frozen at the edges, tasting of sulfur and defeat. You lie down, knife clutched, the wind carrying faint cries, raiders or victims you can't tell. You think of that wolf in the forest, its hungry stare. Raiders are just wolves with clubs, and you're the prey. You close your eyes, dreaming of safe walls and warm guards, but the shadows stalk you into sleep. You're scavenging near the village's edge, the volcanic winter of 536 AD, rendering your old farming tricks useless, and the lands turned traitor under the ash-choked sky. The fields you once tilled are frozen solid, the soil hard as stone, mocking the seeds you never got to plant. You're poking at the dirt with a stick, hoping for a forgotten root, but it's like digging in a crypt. Your stomach's a knot, and you mutter, "Guess I'm not winning Farmer of the Year." The sarcasm's thin, but it keeps you from cursing the sun that's still hiding behind that gray veil. Historical records, like those from the Byzantine writer John Litus, note how traditional agriculture collapsed as the volcanic cooling killed planting seasons. Crop yields plummeted across Europe and Asia, and farmers' knowledge, honed over generations, became obsolete. You're living that now, staring at a patch where barley used to grow, now just a crust of frost and ash. You try breaking the soil, but your stick snaps, and you toss it aside, frustrated. You think of that farmer you saw weeks ago, muttering about his wilting barley. Wonder if he's still trying, or if he's joined the ghosts. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some desperate souls tried planting seeds in ash piles, thinking the warmth of decay might help. You spot a mound nearby, gray and crumbling, with a few sad sprouts already dead. You chuckle. Ash gardens, the ultimate DIY fail. Historians still argue whether farmers adapted or simply abandoned their fields. Pollen records show a drop in cereal grains, but some wild plants thrived. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy clawing at the ground, your fingers numb, hoping for a miracle carrot that doesn't exist. You move to a ditch, remembering it sometimes held wild herbs. Nothing now, just ice and a dead beetle. Your cough's worse, each hack tearing at your chest, and the ash in the air feels like it's laughing at you. You think of that nettle soup, the berries, all gone. The village looms in the distance, quieter every day. You pass the shrine, its pile, shells, that seaweed braid, a cow skull, half buried in frost. Someone's added a broken hoe, a farmer's last offering. You think of that sun symbol, its jagged rays, and the priest's sky myths. No gods are fixing this dirt. A faint rustle makes you freeze. Raiders? You grip your knife, heart pounding, but it's just a starving hare, too weak to run. You lunge, but it's gone, and you're left sprawled in the frost, cursing. You think of that wolf in the forest, its hungry stare. At least it's eating better than you. You head back, the cold biting through your cloak, your pouch empty except for that bronze ring, a useless keepsake. The village feels like a trap. Every hut a reminder of failed harvests and fading skills. Your hut's an icebox, the roof dripping, the straw mat crunchy with frost. You try to sip the frozen water from your flask, but it's sludge, tasting of sulfur and despair. You lie down, knife in hand, the wind carrying a low moan, maybe the fields, maybe your own hunger. You think of that kid by the river, his pebble at the shrine. Is he digging in this dirt too? You push the thought away, staring at the ceiling. Your old tricks are dead, and the land's not forgiving. You close your eyes, dreaming of green fields and warm soil, but the frost buries you in sleep. You're wandering the village, the volcanic winter of 536 AD casting a pall over everything, and the silence of the children is what hits you hardest. The lanes, once alive with kids chasing each other or tossing pebbles, are empty now, the frost and ash swallowing their laughter. You pass a hut where a small pair of sandals sits by the door, caked in gray, and your chest tightens. Hunger and cold are cruelest to the young, and you're seeing it everywhere. Pale faces, too quiet stares. You grip your knife, muttering, "Guess hide and seek's off the table now." The joke's hollow, but it keeps you from dwelling on the ache in your gut, both from hunger and something heavier. Historical records, like those from the Irish Annals, mention high child mortality during the famine and cold, as malnutrition and disease targeted the weakest. Skeletal remains from the period show stunted growth in young bones, a grim marker of 536's toll. You're living that now, spotting a girl huddled by a wall, her hands wrapped in rags, eyes dull. She's not playing, not even shivering, just sitting, like she's fading into the frost. You want to offer something, but your pouch holds only that bronze ring, useless to her. You move on, guilt gnawing, your cough rattling in the ash-heavy air. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some parents tied colorful threads to their kids' wrists, believing it'd protect them from spirits stealing their strength. You notice a frayed red string on the ground, snapped and dirty. You smirk. Spirits don't need to try when hunger's doing the job. Historians still argue whether disease or starvation took more children. Mass graves show tiny skeletons, but plague markers are spotty. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy avoiding the girl's gaze, remembering that kid by the river, the one who mocked your fishing. Is he still out there, or is he fading too? You pass the shrine, its pile, shells, a broken hoe, that cow skull, now dusted with fresh ash. Someone's added a tiny clay doll, cracked but carefully placed. Your throat tightens, and you think of that sun symbol, the priest's myths about angry gods. If they're real, they're not watching out for kids. A faint sound stops you, a soft sob from a hut. You hesitate, then keep moving. You're no hero, and you've got no food, no warmth to share. The cold bites through your cloak, and your stomach's screaming, those berries and nettles a distant memory. You head toward the village edge, hoping to scavenge, but the ground's frozen, offering nothing. A memory hits. That kid's pebble at the shrine, his shrug. You wonder if he's with that girl, or if he's gone quiet too. The wind carries a low moan. Maybe the village, maybe your own fear. You think of that wolf in the forest, its hungry stare. Kids don't stand a chance against this winter's teeth. You clutch the ring, its weight a reminder of everything you can't fix. Your hut's colder, the roof leaking icy drips, the straw mat stiff with frost. You try to sip the sludge in your flask. Its sulfur tastes like a slap. You lie down, knife in hand, the silence heavier than the cold. The kid's absence is a wound, and you're not sure you're much stronger. You think of that clay doll, the red string, the sandals by the door. You close your eyes, dreaming of warm hearths and children's laughter, but the quiet wraps you in its icy arms, pulling you into sleep. You're shuffling through the village, the volcanic winter of 536 AD cloaking everything in a gray haze, and the panicked words of scholars are starting to echo in the silence. You've stumbled across a scrap of parchment near an abandoned hut, its ink smudged but legible, frantic notes about the dim sun, failing crops, and God's wrath. You're no reader, but you recognize fear in the jagged scratches. You tuck it in your cloak, muttering, "Guess even nerds are freaking out now." The sarcasm's thin, but it keeps you grounded as the ash stings your eyes and your cough hacks at your chest. Historical records, like those of the Byzantine scholar Procopius, capture this dread, with scribes across continents noting the sun without light and predicting doom. Monasteries and courts churned out chronicles, their pages thick with omens and despair. You're living that now, clutching the parchment as you pass a crumbling scriptorium, its door ajar, candles long burned out. Inside, you glimpse scattered scrolls and an inkpot frozen solid, like the scholar fled mid-sentence. The air smells of wax and mold, and you wonder what they wrote before the cold drove them away. Or worse. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some scribes claimed writing in red ink could ward off the darkness, as if color could bribe the sky. You spot a spilled vial of crimson near a scroll, now just a stain on the frost. You smirk. Red ink, the ultimate cosmic life hack fail. Historians still argue whether these writings exaggerated the crisis or downplayed it. Some chronicles hint at recovery, while others read like apocalypse fanfic. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy dodging a rat scurrying past, its ribs sharper than yours, probably after the same scraps you're hunting. You move on, the village quieter, the shrines pile, shells, that clay doll, a broken hoe, half buried in ash and frost. You think of that kid's pebble, the sun symbol, the priest's myths. Scholars and priests, both grasping at answers, both coming up empty. Your stomach growls, those berries and nettles a faint memory, and the parchment feels heavy, like it's accusing you of surviving. A distant shout, raiders or a fight, makes you flinch, and you grip your knife, the bronze ring in your pocket a cold weight. You think of that wolf in the forest, its hungry stare. Words won't scare it, or the cold, or the hunger. You head toward your hut, the cold slicing through your cloak, your cough worse in the smoky air. You pass a woman muttering prayers, her hands clutching a scrap of cloth like it's a scroll. Maybe she believes in red ink, too. You don't ask. She looks as lost as you feel. The wind carries a faint scratch, like a quill on parchment, or maybe just ice cracking. You think of that girl by the wall, her dull eyes, and the clay doll at the shrine. The scholar's fear is yours now, written in every frozen step. Your hut's a tomb, the roof leaking, the straw mat icy. You try to sip the frozen sludge in your flask, its sulfur taste like a grim toast to survival. You pull out the parchment, its words blurring in the dimness, and lie down, knife in hand. The wind howls, carrying whispers of panic. Yours, the village's, the scholar's. You close your eyes, dreaming of warm libraries and steady quills, but the fear scrawled in ink and frost follows you into sleep. You're trudging beyond the village, the volcanic winter of 536 AD stretching its icy grip far past your crumbling world, and whispers of distant empires buckling under the same dark sky reach your ears. The frost crunches under your sandals, and the ash in the air stings your lungs, your cough a constant rasp. You've heard tales from a wandering trader, gaunt, half-mad, about cities across seas and mountains starving, freezing, falling apart. You clutch your knife, muttering, "Guess the whole world's got a sun allergy now." The sarcasm's weak, but it keeps you moving through the gray haze, chasing rumors of somewhere, anywhere, less broken. Historical records, like those from the Chinese southern dynasties, confirm global chaos. Harvests failed from Mesopotamia to Japan, and empires like Byzantium and the Liang dynasty faced revolts and famine. The volcanic eruption's ash cloud didn't discriminate, cloaking the globe in cold and hunger. You're living a piece of that now, passing a frozen stream where you imagine far-off rivers, equally locked in ice. The trader's words haunt you. Constantinople's markets empty, Chang'an's walls unguarded. You wonder if their chiefs are as useless as yours, their halls marked with angry symbols like the one you saw. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some distant priests reportedly sacrificed gold to volcanoes, thinking it'd appease the sky fire. You kick a pebble, imagining it as a tiny gold nugget? Yeah, good luck with that. You smirk, but it's grim. Historians still argue whether 536's global crisis sparked new trade routes or just buried old ones. Coin hoards suggest some wealth moved, but abandoned ports tell a bleaker story. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy scanning the horizon, hoping the trader's path leads to food, not just more ash and lies. You pass a lone tree, its branches bare, dusted with frost, like a skeleton in mourning. The shrine's village cousin is nearby. Shells, that clay doll, a red-stained scroll, half frozen, untouched. You think of that parchment you found, its panicked scratches. Did scholars in those far-off cities write the same? Your stomach growls, the berries and nettles long gone, and the bronze ring in your pocket feels heavier, a useless relic of a world falling apart. A distant howl, maybe a wolf, maybe the wind, makes you grip your knife tighter. You think of that forest wolf, its hungry stare. Empires or villages, hunger's the same. You turn back, the cold clawing through your cloak, your cough worse in the smoky air. The village looms, quieter, its huts like graves. You pass a man carving a stick, muttering about news from Rome. You don't ask. Rome's as real as a dragon now. The wind carries a faint cry, maybe raiders, maybe despair. You think of that girl by the wall, her dull eyes, and the kid's pebble at the shrine. If empires are fading, what chance do you have? Your hut's no refuge, the roof leaking, the straw mat icy. You sip the frozen sludge in your flask, its sulfur taste a bitter link to those distant lands. You lie down, knife in hand, the trader's tales echoing. You close your eyes, dreaming of warm cities and full markets, but the cold and ash bind you to their ruin in sleep. You're stumbling through the village outskirts, the volcanic winter of 536 AD teasing you with a flicker of warmth that's gone before you can blink. The sky's still a gray shroud, but for a moment yesterday, the haze thinned, and a weak ray of sunlight stabbed through, warming your face like a cruel prank. You chased it, heart pounding, only to watch it vanish, replaced by frost and ash. Now you're scouring the fields, hoping that false spring left something, anything, growing. You poke the frozen dirt, muttering, "What's next? A tropical heat wave?" The sarcasm's sharp, but it masks the ache of another dashed hope. Historical records, like those from the Byzantine chronicler John Malleolus, note brief thaws in 536, where temperatures spiked just enough to trick farmers before plunging back into cold. Tree rings show erratic growth spurts, proof of nature's mixed signals. You're living that now, kneeling in a patch where you swear you saw a green shoot yesterday. Nothing but ice now, the ground mocking you with its hardness. Your fingers, numb through your tattered cloak, scrape at the frost, but it's like digging through a bad memory. You think of that farmer from weeks ago, his wilted barley. Bet he fell for this tease too. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers danced in circles during thaws, thinking it'd lock in the warmth. You spot a ring of trampled frost nearby, probably their handiwork. You chuckle. Dance moves versus volcanoes. Bold strategy. Historians still argue whether these thaws helped or hurt more. Pollen records show brief plant growth, but sudden frosts killed most of it. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy coughing, the ash still clawing your lungs and scanning for a sprout, a root, anything to quiet your growling stomach. You move to a ditch, remembering it once held herbs. Just ice and ash now, with a faint green smear, maybe a crushed blade of grass, already dead. You think of that nettle soup, those sour berries, all gone. The shrines nearby, its pile, shells, that red-stained scroll, a clay doll, glistening with fresh frost. Someone's added a wilted weed, a sad nod to the false spring. You clutch the bronze ring in your pocket, its weight a reminder of lost chances. A memory hits. That kid by the river, his pebble at the shrine. Did he chase the sunlight too? Your cough worsens, and you're dizzy, maybe from hunger, maybe from the cold snapping back. The village feels emptier, the false spring's betrayal hanging heavy. You pass a woman staring at the sky, her face etched with the same disappointment you feel. "It lied," she whispers. You nod, thinking of that sun symbol scratched on a hut, its rays a broken promise. The wind carries a low crack, ice reforming, or maybe your own hope breaking. You head to your hut, the cold biting deeper, your cloak useless. It's an icebox inside, the roof leaking, the straw mat crunchy with frost. You sip the frozen sludge in your flask, its sulfur taste like the sky's apology. You lie down, knife in hand, the wind howling. You think of that trampled frost ring, the wilted weed. The thaw was a tease, and winter's back to collect. You close your eyes, dreaming of endless summers, but the frost seals you in sleep. You're slinking through the village, the volcanic winter of 536 AD driving people to the edge, and the air hums with desperate rituals as folks beg the heavens for mercy. The frost bites your skin, and the ash in your lungs fuels a cough that won't quit. You pass a clearing where a crowd's gathered, their faces gaunt, chanting around a fire that's more smoke than flame. A woman in tattered robes slashes a goat's throat, its blood steaming on the frozen ground, an offering to gods who aren't answering. You grip your knife, muttering, "Hope the gods like goat takeout." The sarcasm's brittle, but it keeps you from joining the frantic prayers. Historical records, like those from the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, describe sacrificial rites spiking as famine and cold-fueled panic. From Europe to Mesoamerica, people slaughtered animals, or worse, hoping to appease the darkened sky. You're seeing it now, the crowd's chants growing wilder as the woman scatters ash over the blood, her voice cracking with pleas for sunlight. You stay back, the smell of iron and smoke mixing with the sulfur tang you're still choking on. You think of that priest weeks ago, his bone wand and sky myths. This feels darker, like hope's been replaced by fear. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villages buried clay figures under hearths, thinking it'd anchor warmth to the earth. You spot a broken shard near the fire, a crude face staring up. You smirk, cute, but the cold's not impressed. Historians still argue whether these rituals rallied communities or tore them apart. Temple offerings surged, but so did signs of violence in graves. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy edging away, your stomach growling, the memory of those berries and nettles a cruel ghost. The shrine's nearby, its pile, shells, that wilted weed, a clay doll, glistening with frost and now spattered with blood from a stray offering. You think of that kid's pebble, the sun symbol, the false springs tease. These rituals feel like shouting into a void. A man in the crowd catches your eye, his hands red with goat blood, and you move faster. Your cough loud in the quiet. You think of that wolf in the forest, its hungry stare, better than the desperation here. The wind carries a chant, high and eerie, and you shiver, not just from cold. You pass a hut where someone's burning feathers, the stench sharp. Another ritual, another flop. You think of that red ink scroll, the scholar's panic. Everyone's grasping, and nobody's winning. Your cloak's no match for the cold, and the bronze ring in your pocket feels like a taunt. A distant scream, raiders, or maybe the crowd turning on itself, makes you grip your knife tighter. You head to your hut, the village feeling like a trap. It's an icebox inside, the roof leaking, the straw mat stiff with frost. You sip the frozen sludge in your flask, its sulfur taste like the god's rejection. You lie down, knife in hand, the chants echoing outside. You think of that clay shard, the bloody snow. The rituals are desperate, and you're not sure you're any different. You close your eyes, dreaming of warm skies and answered prayers, but the frost and fear chant you into sleep. You're trudging through the village, the volcanic winter of 536 AD blurring time itself, and the endless gray haze makes days bleed into one another like a fever dream. The frost crunches under your sandals, and the ash in your lungs fuels a cough that's now a grim metronome. You can't recall the last time you saw a proper sunrise or felt a season shift. Spring, summer, they're just words now. You pause by a frozen ditch, trying to count days, and mutter, "What's next? Forgetting my own name?" The sarcasm's faint, but it keeps you from sinking into the disorientation that's creeping into your bones. Historical records, like those from the Byzantine historian Agathias, describe a timeless quality to 536, with chronicles noting seasons that never arrived, confusing farmers and scribes alike. Tree rings from the period show no clear growth cycles, proof the world was stuck in a cold limbo. You're living that now, staring at the sky, its gray veil unchanging. No stars to mark the night, no warmth to signal day. Your stomach growls, those berries and nettles a distant echo, and you're dizzy, maybe from hunger, maybe from the way time's slipping through your fingers like ash. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers scratched tally marks on walls to track days, only to abandon them when the marks became meaningless. You spot a hut with a row of uneven lines, half covered in frost. You smirk. Timekeeping, the ultimate 536 fail. Historians still argue whether this temporal blur lasted months or years. Some diaries stop abruptly, while others ramble without dates. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy clutching your knife, the bronze ring in your pocket a cold anchor to a world you barely recognize. You move on, passing the shrine, its pile, shells, that bloody snow, a clay shard, frozen in a mockery of permanence. You think of that kid's pebble, the sun symbol, the goat sacrifice from yesterday. Rituals, myths, none of them mark time either. A memory hits. That false spring, its fleeting warmth. Was it days ago or weeks? You shake your head, the cough worsening, the air thick with ash and despair. You pass a woman muttering about endless winter, her eyes distant, like she's lost in the same blur. You don't ask. You're not sure you want her answer. The village feels like a loop. Each hut a repeat of the last. Each step a question you can't answer. You think of that wolf in the forest, its hungry stare. Does it feel time slipping too? The wind carries a low hum, maybe chance, maybe ice cracking. You grip the ring, its edges biting your palm, and head to your hut. It's colder. the roof leaking icy drips, the straw mat stiff with frost. You sip the frozen sludge in your flask, its sulfur taste a bitter reminder of the unchanging world. You lie down, knife in hand, the blur of time heavier than the cold. You think of those tally marks, the kid's pebble, the endless gray. You close your eyes, dreaming of seasons and sunrises, but the haze wraps you in its timeless grip, pulling you into sleep. You're skulking through the village's fringes, the volcanic winter of 536 AD turning survivors into ghosts who thrive where others falter. And you're starting to notice the cunning ones hoarding secrets to outlast this frozen hell. The ash stings your lungs, your cough a jagged rhythm, and the frost bites through your cloak like it's personal. You spot a figure, lean, cloaked, slipping into a hut with a sack that bulges suspiciously. You've heard whispers of folks hiding food, bartering in shadows, surviving while the rest of you scrape dirt. You grip your knife, muttering, "Sneaky's the new sexy, huh?" The sarcasm's thin, but it keeps your envy from boiling over. Historical records, like those from the Annals of Ulster, hint at survivors who adapted, stashing grain or hunting in secret to dodge famine and raiders. Archaeological finds show hidden caches, pots of dried fish, buried seeds, proof some played the long game. You're seeing it now, watching the figure disappear, their hut's door rigged with a crude lock, a rarity in this crumbling village. You're tempted to snoop, but the memory of those raider tracks from days ago stops you. These survivors aren't sharing, and they're not defenseless. Your stomach growls, those berries and nettles a cruel memory, and you wonder what's in that sack. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some survivors smeared ash on their faces to blend into the haze, dodging both raiders and desperate neighbors. You spot a smudged handprint on a nearby wall, maybe their mark. You smirk. Ninja vibes in 536, who knew? Historians still argue whether these survivors rebuilt communities or just delayed the inevitable. Some hordes suggest planning, but mass graves say most didn't make it. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy eyeing the hut, your cough loud in the silence, hoping the figure doesn't hear. You move closer, sticking to shadows, the shrine's pile, shells, that clay shard, bloody snow, glinting in the frost nearby. You think of that kid's pebble, the sun symbol, the tally marks blurring time. These survivors don't pray or scratch walls, they act. You notice a faint trail, maybe from the figure, leading to the forest. You hesitate, remembering that wolf's hungry stare. Follow, and you might find food, or trouble. Your hand brushes the bronze ring in your pocket, a useless talisman. A distant shout, raiders or a fight, makes you flinch, and you back off, survival instinct winning over curiosity. The village feels like a chessboard, and you're not a rook. You pass a woman bartering a rag for a bone, her eyes sharp, maybe another secret keeper. You think of that false spring, the goat sacrifice, the scholar's panic. The cunning ones don't wait for gods or warmth, they hoard and hide. Your hut's no sanctuary, the roof leaking, the straw mat icy. You sip the frozen sludge in your flask, its sulfur tastes like defeat. You lie down, knife in hand, the wind carrying a faint rustle. Maybe the figure, maybe nothing. You think of that smudged handprint, the locked door. They're surviving, and you're just hanging on. You close your eyes, dreaming of secret stashes and warm hiding spots. But the cold and ash guard their secrets in your sleep. You're staggering through the village, the volcanic winter of 536 AD shaking the ground beneath you, and new tremors hint at more eruptions ready to pile onto this nightmare. The frost crunches under your sandals, and the ash in your lungs fuels a cough that's now a raw scrape. You freeze as the earth rumbles, a low growl that sends pebbles skittering. Huts creak, and a distant scream cuts through the haze. You grip your knife, muttering, "What, the sky wasn't enough? Now the ground's pissed?" The sarcasm's shaky, but it keeps your legs moving as you scan for safety in a world that's falling apart. Historical records, like those from the Chinese Book of Sui, note seismic activity in 536, possibly tied to the same volcanic unrest that choked the sun. Geological data shows ash layers and fault shifts, suggesting the earth was as restless as the sky. You're feeling it now, stumbling as another tremor ripples through, cracking the ice on a nearby ditch. You think of that first eruption, the one that started this mess. Krakatoa, Ilopango, nobody's sure. Another one could bury what's left of you. Your stomach growls, those berries and nettles a faint ghost, and you're dizzy, the ash and cold tightening their grip. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some villagers thought tying knots in ropes could bind the earth's anger, like it was a tantrum to tame. You spot a frayed cord dangling from a hut, knotted tight. You smirk. Cute, but the ground's not into bondage. Historians still argue whether these quakes were local or global. Sediment cores show widespread disruption, but dating's tricky. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy dodging a falling roof beam as the tremor fades, your cough loud in the sudden quiet, the air thick with fresh dust. You head toward the village center, the shrine's pile, shells, that smudged handprint, a knotted cord, shifting slightly, some offerings toppled. You think of that kid's pebble, the sun symbol, the secret hoarders from yesterday. Even the cunning ones can't outsmart the earth. A woman runs past, clutching a child, her face pale. "It's waking!" she yells. You don't ask what, she means the ground, the sky, the whole cursed world. Your hand brushes the bronze ring in your pocket, its weight a reminder of everything you can't control. A memory hits, that false spring, its cruel tease. The earth's tremors feel like another betrayal. The village is chaos, people shouting, some praying, others fleeing. You pass a man tying knots in a rag, muttering about holding the land. You think of that goat sacrifice, the red ink scroll, the tally marks. Nothing stops this. Your cough worsens, and you're lightheaded, maybe from fear, maybe from the ash. The wind carries a low rumble, maybe another quake, maybe your own pulse. You head to your hut, the cold slicing through your cloak, the ground unsteady. It's a wreck inside, the roof leaking dirt now, the straw mat dusted with fresh ash. You sip the frozen sludge in your flask, its sulfur taste like the earth's own breath. You lie down, knife in hand, the tremors echoing in your bones. You think of that knotted cord, the child's scream. The earth's not done, and neither is your fight. You close your eyes, dreaming of still ground and clear skies, but the quakes rumble through your sleep. You're slumped in your hut, the volcanic winter of 536 AD draining the last flickers of fight from your body, and hope is fading softer than a whisper in the frost. The ash-heavy air claws at your lungs, your cough a broken rhythm, and the cold seeps through your cloak like it's claiming you for its own. The village outside is a ghost of itself, huts crumbling, voices silenced, the ground still trembling from yesterday's quakes. You clutch your knife, its blade dull but familiar, and mutter, "Guess I'm the last guest at the apocalypse party." The sarcasm's faint, a reflex to keep the darkness at bay, but your eyes are heavy, your stomach a hollow ache. Historical records, like those from the Byzantine chronicler Procopius, paint 536 as a year where hope withered across continents, with survivors clinging to faith or cunning as empires and villages alike buckled. Mass graves from the period, filled with brittle bones, show how few outlasted the cold, famine, and disease. You're living that now, lying on the straw mat, its icy crunch a cruel bed. You think of that secret hoarder, their bulging sack. Wonder if they're still outsmarting this winter, or if the quakes got them too. Your hand brushes the bronze ring in your pocket, a relic of a world that's slipping away. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some survivors sang lullabies to the sky, believing soft melodies could coax back the sun. You hum a tuneless note, half laughing at the thought. Your voice is more croak than song now. Historians still argue whether hope or despair drove more to their graves. Some chronicles speak of resilience, others of surrender. You don't care about the debate. You're too busy staring at the ceiling, the roof's leaks frozen into jagged spikes, your cough echoing in the silence. The shrine's pile, shells, that knotted cord, a child's doll, feels like a memory of a fight you're losing. You sip the sludge in your flask, its sulfur taste a bitter farewell, and think of the village's ghosts. That kid by the river, his pebble, the girl's dull eyes, the scholar's panicked scroll, the sun symbol, The goat's blood, the false spring, they're all fading, like you. The wind hums, softer now, carrying no screams, no chants, just a quiet that's heavier than the cold. You think of that wolf in the forest, its hungry stare. Maybe it's out there, still hunting while you're here, letting go. Your knife slips from your hand, too heavy to hold, and you don't reach for it. The world grows quieter, the haze outside softening into a gentle blur. Your breaths slow, each one a little lighter, like the frost is lifting you away. The village, the ash, the quakes, they're distant now, a story you're no longer part of. You imagine a warm field, sunlight spilling over green hills, children laughing somewhere far off. The cold fades, not harsh anymore, but kind, wrapping you in a stillness that feels like home. Let the wind hum its lullaby, let the sky keep its secrets. You're ready to rest, to drift into a sleep deeper than dreams, where the winter can't follow. Your eyes flutter shut, the hum of the world a soft murmur, like a fan in a quiet room. The frost is a blanket now, tucking you in, and the ash is just dust settling on a long journey's end. You're not afraid, not anymore. The sun may hide, but you're finding your own light. Faint but enough. Let the village fade, let the quakes still. You're slipping into a place where time doesn't blur, where hunger doesn't bite. The world whispers goodnight, and you smile. A final, gentle exhale carrying you away. Sweet dreams.